So if anyone is questioning JD Vance's ability to handle the media, this video will put all of that to rest because JD Vance just bashed Dana back to the point where I don't think she should have conducted this interview. Obviously, for the purpose of ratings, Dana wasn't going to ask any questions related to policy because the people who actually watch CNN don't care about policy. They care to vote for someone that isn't Trump, that has diversity and is pro-reproductive freedom. But anyways, JD Vance finally got asked about Tim Walz's military scandal where Tim first knew of a deployment to Iraq, committed to the deployment, went around his leadership by retiring to pursue Congress without telling them, stated over and over in interviews that he retired as a command sergeant major and went to Afghanistan. Even though he didn't go to Afghanistan, he went to a non-combat deployment in Italy and couldn't retire as a command sergeant major since he didn't have the adequate schooling or time in service to do that.
And on the question of when he left the National Guard, he filed his election paperwork February 10th, 2005. That was a month before the National Guard even announced that it was possible that they would deploy to Iraq, and it ended up being 2 months. He retired 2 months before they actually got the paperwork.
But on CNN last night, Dana, one of the people who was actually in charge of him said they knew they were going to deploy to Iraq in February of 2004, fall of 2004. So he knew he was going to Iraq. He decided to quit, to retire, whatever word you want to use, because he wanted to run for Congress. He lied about that. He said that when he decided to retire, he did not know that he was going to Iraq. That is another untruth, as even his senior military officer said. So again, I'm not criticizing the service. I'm criticizing the dishonesty. Dishonesty spoken in favor and for the purpose of political benefit. And I think that the most important thing here, Dana, is it goes to Kamala Harris's judgment. Tim Walz is ultimately going to be the vice president. Kamala Harris is in great health. I'm sure she's going to be president if she wins for 4 or maybe even 8 years. Why did Kamala Harris choose a person who has lied about their military service? I think that is a serious lapse in judgment. And I don't want to hear from a campaign spokesperson of Kamala Harris. I want to hear Kamala Harris herself address what I just said.
You know, I've seen a lot of statements from veterans, including those you served with, saying it's just untoward to be criticizing somebody who served for 24 years.
Dana, I'm not interested in the ad hominem. I've heard from a lot of veterans groups who criticize Tim Walz. The question is, he said he served in war, and he didn't. That is a dishonesty. I couldn't care less what one or the other person says about it. I care about what the truth is. The truth is that Tim Walz didn't tell the truth. And importantly, Dana, this is about Kamala Harris's judgment. And I think that when you ask, why has Kamala Harris allowed the border to be wide open? Why has Kamala Harris supported policies that have promoted the increase in inflation? I think it goes to the heart of her judgment, and I think that that's what we should be talking about.
One last question. Donald Trump didn't serve in the military. He received a medical draft deferment for bone spurs to avoid serving in the Vietnam War, reportedly as a favor to his father. Do you find that shameful, too?
I think that Donald Trump didn't serve in the military, but he didn't lie about it, Dana. I've known Donald Trump for a long time. He really honors our veterans. He honors me for my service. Donald Trump didn't lie about serving in the military. He didn't say that he went to Vietnam when he didn't. This is the problem. I don't criticize anybody. Whether they served our country or not, I think it's honorable to serve, but obviously a lot of people have reasons for not serving. I criticize somebody for embellishing their record, for lying, saying, I went to war. Dana, do you think that it's a problem that he said, I went to war, but he didn't actually? That seems to be a problem to me.
Well, they've corrected that. Let's move on to...
They've corrected it by admitting that he lied.
Let's move on to another important issue.
So first, you can't criticize someone that hasn't served in the military. You can serve in other ways. I mean, he served his country by employing thousands of people. But the Democrats' only response regarding criticizing military service is saying you can't criticize the service because it's service. And that's unequivocally false, because if you lie about where you get deployed, lie about your rank, always wore Green Beret hats even though you weren't a Green Beret. I mean, no one just wears Vietnam War veteran hats when you're not a Vietnam War veteran. That's being dishonest and misleading to the American public, point blank period. But anyways, this whole interview didn't have to do with policy, and JD had enough of that.
You've now asked me 3 questions about comments that I made 3 years ago. I wonder what Kamala Harris thinks about the fact that she supported policies that opened the American southern border. I wonder what Kamala Harris thinks about the fact that she lied to the American people about Joe Biden's middle facility for the office. You are interviewing me, Dana, because I respect the American people enough to sit down for an interview.
I appreciate that.
Kamala Harris has been the nominee for 3 weeks. She hasn't sat down for a real interview.
Believe me, we are asking. You're not going to get a disagreement there.
But the point is, Dana, you've got me for 15 minutes or however long you have me. We should be talking about public policies that matter. How are we going to lower inflation? How are we going to reduce the cost of food and housing? How are we going to close down that southern border? We've talked so little about that. We've talked a lot more about a sarcastic remark I made 3 years ago. I think we should talk about the issues that most Americans care about.
He's absolutely right, and I'm getting annoyed that these news articles or interviews only have to do with what's trending out there. Let those arguments of the false military scandal, the false race scandals be for channels like myself to discuss, because at this point, I'm starting to think I talk more policy than CNN. I have a feeling the JD Vance v. Tim Walz debate are going to be nothing but personal attacks, which, fair enough, I would like to see Tim Walz wiggle himself out of being a total case of a stolen valor, because he's going to be on the defense the whole time. And maybe that's fine for that debate, but the Trump v. Harris debate needs to be on policy so we can convince more moderates and independents to vote for Trump. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for today's video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.